Good day, everybody. How's it going out there? This is James from James Moore's World Traveler. Now, today I'm going to try a different type of review about not a tour, but something different. It's actually about my vacation package to where? Mexico. I'm going to give you 5 facts, again, of course, 5, about this package that I did. But the one thing I'm going to do to make it a little differently is going to give you one drawback that I found for each point. We'll see if there's anything else I can tell you about it. That may not always be great either. So, anyway, I'm going to be reviewing the WestJet vacation package to BlueBay Grand Esmeralda Resort in Cancun, Mexico. And just a little thing about Mexico, it's actually not that bad. As long as you're not doing something silly, you're perfectly fine to go to Mexico. A lot of people think that I know of, that a lot of people were thinking, oh, I'm afraid to go because it's scary, it's dangerous. I said, yeah, if you go somewhere where you're not supposed to. Typically, if you're in the tourist areas, you will not have any issues. So, now, fact number 1. The check-in to this place was fairly quick, 15 to 20 minutes. You know, you do your typical check-in, give them the information they require, and blah, 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 right? Done. I got to my room, which was a garden view, and think, well, why a garden view? Why not an ocean view? Well, because number 1, the price that I paid was for that reason. It was for a garden view, and at that time I found it was a little expensive, but I did it. And actually, the view was actually really nice, because I would rather stare out at trees and grass, which is nicer than looking at concrete and other parts of the building and watching people walk by, noisy people sometimes. Not to say everyone is, but to walk by while you're trying to do your thing, right? Especially at night, right? You don't have anybody walking by, generally speaking, on the garden side, right? So it's better, right? And all the amenities were there in the room, like drinks and stuff like that. And I drank the non-alcoholic drinks, and then whatnot. So I didn't drink the alcohol, which is fine. I'm not a big drinker, so that's fine for me. There's pools. There's a couple multi-pools, which are like several different pools throughout the section of the grounds, and then there's a couple smaller pools. There are 6 a la carte restaurants and 1 buffet, where the buffet you don't need any kind of reservations, but the a la cartes you do. And I'm going to tell you, I had about 3 of them for sure in the 7 days, 7 nights. I'll make that 8 nights, 8 days. Anyway, point is, you have choices, and it's still worth it. It's honestly a lot of the good places to eat. Buffet has a lot of variety as well, obviously, because it's a buffet. And overall, it was a decent place. One drawback, though, that I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to do 2 quick ones. One was, of course, being a resort, I feel like they needed to do some upgrades. There's a few upgrades they could have done. Little things like new paint. There's a couple of the people that I've met that their door didn't lock properly. And then, so little minor upgrades that could be done. But then the drawback that I was mainly going to talk about was I walked out onto the balcony the first day when I put my stuff in my room, and all I could smell was the stench. I'm like, oh, what the heck is that smell? And that will get to a point later where I'll tell you why, which I believe is the fact. I figured something out later. So on to fact number 2. The property has golf cart trains that come around the property throughout the whole property, and they drop you off everywhere. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So this is going to come to point number 3 as well, because I wanted to take the train, or not the train, the golf cart train, I'll say. Okay, fine. Golf cart train. They stop anywhere you want, and sometimes you have to walk a little bit different distance. And I wanted to go to the Lagoon, which I found out had a lagoon on the one side of the resort, which was closer to the larger pools or whatever, close to that area. So I got off at the place, which all you have to do is say, hey, I want to go to this place, and they'll let you off where they need to let you off, right? So I went to the resort, Lagoon, not the resort. I went to the part of the resort that had the lagoon. I had to walk through the beach, through the property, to the beach, and then down the beach. So it was a little bit of a walk. I actually met an Australian couple. I believe they were Australian, or one was Australian and one was German or something. And they were also going there, so I kind of followed with them. And we went to the beach, the lagoon area of the beach. And it was such a beautiful place, actually. Very salty. I didn't know lagoons were salty. I didn't know much about a lagoon, but it was interesting. It wasn't that deep, and I'm a tall guy, so it only went up to maybe less than my neck, maybe like just below my neck, but just above my chest, so it was fairly decent, and I loved it. I will admit, it was a really nice place to go. For about a couple hours, I think I ended up going there. Plus, I got a little bit of sun. And so, yeah, the drawback, though, I think about that was, and I'm going to say with both, because one night I waited for about 15 to 20 minutes, unfortunately. And you know what? You can walk. It's not that far of a walk to go through all the resorts, but the frustrating part was I had to wait one time for longer than 15 minutes, which is supposed to come every 10 minutes or something to almost every stop. It's about 10 minutes wait, maybe at most, but it was like 15 to 20 minutes. I'm like, what is going on with this? So that was the drawback for that. Sometimes it does happen that they aren't running or something. I don't know what happened. So it was frustrating. So that's the drawback. Now, number 4. I didn't just like to sit on the resort and suntan and do all my fun stuff, right? I wanted to get out and do some local places. My family member actually told me about a place called Puerto Morelos. And I know I could go to Cancun, I could go to Playa del Carmen. But where we were located in the Riviera Maya from Cancun, we were kind of situated between this place called Puerto Morelos. Of course, I actually took the local transport, which I had to walk down to the end of the lot, onto the roadway. I asked the security guy, hey, where did I take the local transport to Puerto Morelos? He says, just at the end of the way on the right side. You just stand there and it'll come as soon as I can, right? It's, I don't know, it's like 15 minutes or less usually. So I did. I grabbed the bus up to the stop on the main road and said, hey, I need to go to Puerto Morelos. So I need to get off where I need to get to go to there. So he told me where to get off, and I got off. It was about 10 minutes ride, and it was very cheap. It was actually like 30 pesos or something. I don't remember. Honestly, I don't remember. It was very cheap, like 30 or 40 pesos for one way. Then when I jumped off, I could have waited for the bus, but I didn't realize when it was coming to go from the main road to Puerto Morelos, which I ended up walking. And if you don't mind it, it was a hot day for me, so I would recommend, if you're going to go, drink lots of water. But don't drink too much, because otherwise you may have to use the washroom, and I didn't find any washrooms over there. So drink just enough to hydrate yourself. I didn't bring enough with me, and I was suffering a little bit of, not dehydration, but I was very thirsty. But I walked 3 miles. I believe it was 3 miles, because I think they go in miles. And the sign said 3 miles over to Puerto Morelos, which was a nice walk, even though it was hot. But you can take the transport back as well. And that's what I did. I took it from Puerto Morelos. This was like 20 pesos or something. That was cheap. Over to the corner. And then I took another, whatever, the 40 pesos back to the resort. And you can also take it to either Cancun, because it goes all the way to Cancun, or you can go to Playa del Carmen. And that's what I did as well. Numerous days later, I went to Playa del Carmen and for a few hours and did some shopping and walked around. So it's great. You got lots of public transport. It's cheap. You can take a transport from the resort. A lot of those resorts do have it, and this one did. But I found that it was actually just as better, if not better, to take the public transport that I did. It's a little unsafe, and then okay, so this is where the drawback is. It's a little unsafe for one reason. You do have to walk across the other side of the street, and it's a very busy roadway. So be very careful if you do it, because, like I said, it's a busy roadway, and you have to cross over 2 lanes of traffic, and then there's a boulevard on this place, and then across another couple lanes of traffic. So that's the drawback. But it's worth it going there as long as you're safe. I mean, you're safe, right? Just don't do careless stuff and you're fine, right? So that brings me now to what? Number 5. And the final one. And the best one yet. WestJet excursions with the company. They had representatives the next day after I got there. Of course, they're not going to do it the same day, which was silly for them because I arrived at like 2 o'clock or something like that. So on the next day, they had excursion representatives from WestJet. And of course, what did they do? They offer you excursions from there. So what did I do? I took a look. Looked. Things looked good, but there's some that I couldn't afford. Financially, I only had a limited number of dollars with me, including local currency and my credit card. So at the end of the day, I chose 2 different excursions. One was to Chichen Itza. Yes, Chichen Itza, where after a few hours, once we got there, we got, on the way back, we ended up taking a dip in a cenote. It was kind of a somewhat enclosed cenote. It was just a large sinkhole with water that you can swim in, and it was fantastic. Where they had and I typically don't like jumping. Well, I do, but I jumped off this side where you could just jump off the edge into the water. And the only thing I can say, and I'll give this as a drawback for that as well. We'll see. I took that, and then we also stopped at a small little town, which was actually, I found a little fact from the gentleman that was, I think he was, I don't know if he was a part of the tour or something like that, but I was talking to him, and he says, a little tidbit that you might want to know. The average Mexican person that works makes approximately, I think it was 60 pesos per day. 60 pesos. So if you feel bad about yours, think about that. Would you like to be making 60 pesos a day on average? It's up to you. I realized, what I'm making, it depends on my lifestyle, right? So anyway, that's a little tidbit I wanted to share with you that I found out. So, lastly, the other tour that I decided to take was called a snorkel tour. 3 cenotes that we did some snorkeling in. The first cenote we were in was an alcove inlet off the main ocean, where we snorkeled in one of the most gorgeous inlets I ever saw in my entire life. The fish were superly beautiful, amazing. The water, the life that I saw was, I can't even describe it. It was so beautiful. I wish I had brought a camera besides my main camera, because I would have loved to take in some underwater pictures, but I didn't. The second one was a cavern cenote, which was still really beautiful. It was darkish, so once you start swimming and doing your little snorkeling, it was actually pretty interesting. It was still really beautiful. Oh my God, no, I can't believe that. Like, how beautiful was it? I can't even put it into words. Number 3, we did an open cenote, which means it was wide open enough that there was not any kind of walls around it from the earth. And they had a swing that you could swing off and jump into the water, and they also had a zip line. One thing I found about that was doing the zip line was a little more difficult because I'm a big guy. I'm like pretty heavy, and trying to hold myself up on this little holder zip line piece was very difficult at times. So, and then being wet didn't help. So I felt I was falling. So I sometimes didn't always make it to the end of the rope to drop down. But for the most part, it was actually pretty decent. It was fun as fun can be. And it's funny because actually one of the things they did was they took